2-minute wonders. There will not be an opportunity for the member in charge to do a response wind-up at the end. Order. Dr. Karen Mullen to move the motion.
Thank you. Madam Chairman, I beg to move that this House has considered the new hospitals programme, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, with a debate that is very timely in the light of the Health Secretary's statement this week. My remarks today are focused on 3 hospitals that serve my constituents as part of the East Sussex Healthcare Trust. They're Eastbourne District General Hospital and Conquest Hospital, situated outside of my constituency, but the major secondary care provider for my constituents, and Bexhill Community Hospital. As part of the new hospitals programme announced by the previous government, Eastbourne District General Hospital is due to be entirely rebuilt, and Conquest Hospital is set to be reorganised and the structure improved to ensure it's fit for the future. Alongside creating additional inpatient wards and improved parking facilities, these plans include expanding their emergency departments at Eastbourne and Conquest, improving access to cardiology and ophthalmology services, redeveloping outpatients, theatres, endoscopy and diagnostic services. Also included in the programme were plans to upgrade Bexhill Community Hospital, equipping it to deliver more services at the local level. Currently, only 53% of the space in our hospitals is allocated to clinical space. Once work is complete, this will increase to 70%. To reflect the increasing demand for care, these plans will increase the number of hospital beds by 13%, the number of single rooms as a proportion of hospital space from 18 to 70%, and the number of outpatient consulting rooms by 28%. Having worked in the NHS as a doctor in A&E for a number of years before becoming an MP, I know the difficulties that can arise working in buildings that are in need of improvement. The physical infrastructure of the building being worked on is outside the control of frontline staff, and they often have to do whatever it takes to make it work. But it would be better if they did not have to. And I think the Minister would agree that despite these circumstances, our healthcare staff work tirelessly, and we owe it to them to deliver better infrastructure. Whatever the new government may say, progress on the new hospitals programme was being made under the previous government, despite the challenges presented by the pandemic and the inflationary pressures on construction costs as a result of the war in Ukraine. This programme was, of course, incredibly ambitious, but remained a significant commitment to investment in hospital infrastructure. During the 2024 general election, the Labour Party committed to delivering the new hospitals programme. Candidates up and down the country made pledges to deliver on this programme, but this week the Health Secretary broke that pledge at the dispatch box, moving the goalposts, as a result of which many constituents in Bexhill and Battle will not see the benefits of this programme until 2039 at the earliest.
I think Clive Jones was picked to the post first. Yep.
Thank the honourable member for giving way. I declare my interest as a governor of the Royal Berkshire Hospital and that a family member has shares in a medical company. Patients and my constituents are heartbroken by the government's decision to push the start date of the Royal Berks construction to 2037. This will disappoint both patients and staff. But the honourable gentleman must recognise the role of his party played in creating it. Does he agree that his party need to reflect on their part in the delayed new hospital building programme, and will he apologise for it?
Karen Mullen.
It's a 30-minute debate, and I want to be generous to let people who come in with, what I expect will be want to make short points in support of their hospitals, but I don't want to give up my time to allow this to degenerate into a highly political back and forth. So, I don't think that. So, as of course I mentioned, I made the point they pledged to do it and they didn't, and I remind the minister to address in a moment. I remind.
Can
I congratulate my honourable friend for getting this Westminster Hall debate and the timely nature of it. As you will know, Dean Russell, the former Member of Parliament for Watford, was a keen advocate for Watford General, and he continued to make sure that we progressed that particular project, a hospital that directly impacts my constituents in South West Hertfordshire. Does he share my disappointment that Watford General is now not likely to get spades in the ground until 2032 at the earliest, and some of the figures being banded around, and I know the Minister has uploaded draft bill costs, but 1.5 billion to 2 billion seems a bit high for what was initially being proposed.
Karen Mullen.
I do share that disappointment, and that might relate to some of the remarks I go on to make about the fact with inflationary pressures remaining globally, that those costs will go up as time is delayed. And to address the concerns about our role in this, I will just remind the Minister that the Chancellor specifically asked during the election campaign about commitments being made on tax and spend, and whether she would say, when in government, that those now have to change because of the fiscal challenges that she didn't know about. And actually, not yet. Actually, this is exactly what the government have done. Again and again, breaking not just this pledge, but a series of pledges that they made during the election when they said they wouldn't say, when they got in government, that they'd been forced into that situation. That was a specific pledge that she made. And it's clear from the Secretary of State's statement this week that the government intends to continue to make this issue a political football. But I want to reiterate the important context for the challenges we are seeing when it comes to NHS capital backlogs. When we came into government in 2010, £1 in every £4 being spent by the government was borrowed. This is quite clearly unsustainable. If the Labour Party thinks its current economic inheritance presents challenges for public spending, let me remind them what we inherited. Unemployment, not yet. Unemployment was higher, inflation was higher, the deficit, or the black hole as they like to call it, was higher, and economic growth was lower. But we prioritised NHS spending in those contexts. The previous... I will.
Helen Dollimore.
Honourable Member for giving way, and I congratulate him on securing this debate. My constituency neighbour, 3 hospitals that we all care deeply about, and I join him in paying tribute to our amazing NHS staff. I was at one of the local hospitals recently with a family member, and I'll be there next week, and they do amazing work. But would he not agree with me that what this Labour government was confronted with when they came in was that the Conservative government, despite promising this hospital for our community, had actually not budgeted for it, and they found that the spending had run out in April. So if the Conservative government was serious about committing to this hospital programme, they should have budgeted for it. And what this Labour government has done is provide the funding and put a realistic and honest framework in place for our communities as to when we will get this work done.
Yeah. Governments make choices. I've laid out how the worst economic inheritance that we inherited, and we prioritised NHS spending. Nobody forced you to give above inflationary pay increases to a number of public sector workers, enormous pay increases to train drivers, significant unwise investment in your green investment plan. So those issues are to be tackled. I'll just make one more remark about, I don't have to let anybody come in, so I'm letting you come in to make a point about your hospitals. If it continues to be a continual back and forth, I'm here, it's my speech, I can continue to make those points. If you just continually come in, I just want anybody to come in.
We've had the word
so
you a few times. You refers to me, I'm the chair.
So if members continue to... it just isn't the time for a continual back and forth on a 30-minute debate. So I can make some more progress. I'll make some more progress. And as I said, when it comes to comparing the record of the NHS, that the performance of the NHS under Labour in Wales, across many of the metrics they criticised us for, is actually worse. This is because across England, Scotland and Wales, and this is where I hope we can come to some agreement, we had not only the pandemic but an increasing demographic challenge. SNP, Labour, the Conservatives, in all 3 areas in which we have responsibility for health, are seeing considerable challenges that all of us are struggling to manage, and the Labour Party will now struggle to manage. And just as it was when Labour were last time in office, when budgets are challenged, capital spending is often deprioritised in decisions that might make sense in the short term but can create long-term pressures. This is nothing new, and members across the House agree that our hospitals need modernisation, with 42% of the NHS estate built before 1985 and 14% predating the member stood up first.
Thank the honourable member for giving way, and I appreciate that he doesn't want this to be a political debate, but so far it's been all about politics. If we want to have a debate about the state of the NHS and how we transform it, that debate has to be a level debate. Now, in our situation in Cornwall, we have one general hospital, and we're very fortunate to be in the position where that general hospital is in the first phase. And the reason it's in the first phase, just for a women and children's unit, is because we've had a desperate need for it. And it was originally promised by the former Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, over 10 years ago. Nothing came to fruition. We've been waiting a long time for this, and I fully accept government is about choices. We've had to deal with whatever we want to say, however we want to position it, a number of different challenges since we came into government. There is now a coherent programme that's of rollout.
The clerk's frowning is a bit on the long side for an intervention.
Does the member agree that we now have a coherent programme, however long it is, to implement these changes?
It remains to be seen. We'll have to see what the OBR says in March about your planned public expenditure limits. And if I can just be clear about my query about interventions, I'm very happy to debate things in and out, but It's a 30-minute debate where the primary focus is on the person who's had the debate, and the Minister will get a chance to make these repeated points. So I'm not going to let anyone else make any interventions. I was happy to let people make interventions because I'm keen to get you all to champion your local hospitals, but if you're not willing to kind of play ball with me in fair politics...
Order, just avoid the word you.
Pardon?
The word
Sorry,
you...
I apologise. If members are not willing to go along with that courtesy, I'm afraid that I won't be able to continue with that. I've tried to be fair and decent to people. So as I said, so I hope that the Minister at least is shorter on rhetoric and longer on details of what actually happens than his Secretary of State has been, than her Secretary of State has been. And that brings me back to my local hospital and what happens next. Shortly after the election, I attended a briefing with the East Sussex Healthcare Trust, which I'm proud to say has made incredible improvements over the past 10 years. Despite what they've described as a challenging financial position, they've reversed their special measures and improved standards across the board. The hospitals under this trust are crucial parts of our local healthcare services in East Sussex, and I've served this community for decades. Each year, these hospitals have carried out more than 160,000 emergency attendances and carry out 56,000 planned surgeries and 438,000 outpatient appointments. It's also important to remember that these hospitals are not just healthcare providers, but job creators too, employing around 8,700 people locally. However, they were clear that the remedial works due under the new hospital programme could not be delivered soon enough. Throughout all of their hospitals, East Sussex Healthcare Trust estimate that their total backlog rectification cost is over £300 million, as of when the new hospital programme was announced in 2019. Their critical infrastructure risk is the 10th highest in England and was estimated to represent around £64 million of the £300 million total required to resolve the backlog. If left untouched, it's estimated this figure will rise to £220 million over 10 years. Given the disappointing decision to delay the major infrastructure investment that would have addressed this, what is the plan now? How will the government now ensure that these sites can continue to function effectively? I would ask the Minister to explain in detail, and I'm grateful for the previous interactions we've had on this issue in the Minister's time, how they're now going to manage these issues. I know the Trust itself is now working at pace to try and develop a better understanding of the impact of the decision and its possible mitigations. What support is being put in place by the Department and NHS England to assist hospitals in this work? But tackling the colossal backlog of repairs is not enough to equip these hospitals for the 21st century. The way we deliver care has drastically changed since these hospitals were built. A new hospital is not just a new building, it's more than just bricks and mortar. They're about rethinking traditional and outdated models of care to reflect the changing needs of patients. Hospitals in East Sussex have been assessed as having a digital maturity level of 0. This must be addressed with the government's ambition of a digital revolution to be realised. The layout of these hospitals simply aren't designed for modern healthcare, with far too few single rooms to meet demand, which leaves them poorly equipped to effectively control infection and unable to offer patients privacy and dignity when they need it most. These issues are pronounced when we enter the winter months, with the UK Health Security Agency reporting a sharp increase in the number of patients admitted to hospital for flu and other respiratory diseases. As the Health Secretary mentioned last week, there are 5,100 people in hospital with flu, more than 3 times the number at this point last year. As this is only compounded by the UK's ageing population, often described correctly as a demographic time bomb, as in the next 25 years the number of older people older than 25 will double to 2.6 million. In East Sussex alone, the population is expected to increase by 14%, with significant growth in the over 70s demographic. As this comes to pass, healthcare needs become more complex and demand for services will continue to grow. I've been working with a number of GP practices in my constituency to help bring to fruition their plans to move into larger, more modern premises, and as such, I'm encouraged by the government's £889 million of extra funding for general practice. From that work, I know a significant barrier to these projects being delivered is the rising cost of construction. I was informed by Rother District Council that construction costs on their joint projects have increased by approximately 40% since 2020. These issues underscore how critical these rebuilds are to East Sussex Healthcare Trust, as well as others across the country, to deliver the best healthcare outcomes for patients and future-proof our NHS. While financial prudence is essential, the Health Secretary's delays only escalate construction costs and deepen the strain on our healthcare system. Investment now will save money and lives in the long term. Instead, the Labour government have delayed plans, admittedly ambitious plans, and kicked the can down the road. The decision to delay schemes in East Sussex will have consequences for patient care, NHS staff and public trust. Without urgent interim funding to address these issues, patient safety and care standards will be at risk. I call on the Minister to secure dedicated resources to tackle the new challenges in maintenance and capital spending created by their decision, and ensure that these hospitals can continue to serve the community safely and effectively while we wait for the new promised facilities to materialise. Delay must not mean deterioration, and I urge the government to act now to protect both patients and NHS staff. Thank you.
The question is that this House has considered the new hospital programme. Minister Karen Smith.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairship, Dr HoC. Look, I congratulate the Honourable Member for Bexhill and Battle for Secure and Debate on this important matter. If he'd been a Labour MP, there would have been howls of fix, because I can totally commend his timing on getting this debate 2 days after the announcement about which nobody else knew. So, look, we pledged, to just say first of all, a lot of little back and forth, but just to confirm, we pledged to support this programme. And we are. That's what Monday was about. Let's be no doubt about that. I was part of the largest capital programme in the NHS when I served as a non-executive director under the last Labour government, and this will be the next largest capital programme under this Labour government. As noted by Lord Darcy in his investigation, the hospitals we rely on are deteriorating after the NHS suffered years of underinvestment. This government inherited a programme to deliver a new hospital that was unfunded beyond March 2025 and was repeatedly delayed with no credible delivery plan.
Chris Vince.
I thank the Minister for giving way, and I thank her and the Secretary of State for their statement on Monday, in which £1.5 billion worth of government funding was dedicated to Princess Alexandra. I would add, though, that it's not just an issue of funding when it comes to my local hospital in Harlow, but in fact that actually the land wasn't purchased, the business plan wasn't completed. So the idea that this hospital was going to be completed by 2030, wasn't it a pipe dream, Minister?
Minister.
I thank him for that, and I'm happy to take interventions, but I do need to finish by 4:30, so I'm conscious of time, and he's absolutely right, and I will come on to some of that. We need to be very clear and honest with people about what was ready and the different stages of these programmes, which is something that we are very keen to do. Look, staff and patients deserve better, and that is why the Secretary of State asked officials to review the programme and put the programme on a firm footing with sustainable funding so that all the projects can be delivered. Now, I do thank the Honourable Gentleman for his service to the NHS and his experience, and I agree that it's appalling for staff. And beyond, we're going to disagree about the political analysis, we all understand that, but I do think he makes some really well-informed points about models of care and future models of care, all of which we need to take account of in the delivery of this programme, as well as other parts of the capital programme, and we will. As the Secretary of State announced to the House on Monday, we now have a realistic plan to deliver the programme, and I'm pleased we can be honest with people, starting a new chapter, setting out a new commitment to deliver these hospitals that are so important to everyone's constituents, that is realistic and backed with funding. We've worked really closely with the Treasury. We've secured these 5-year waves of investment by £15 billion of investment over consecutive waves, averaging £3 billion a year. This ensures a balanced portfolio of schemes at different development stages being delivered now and into the future. The new delivery plan sets out the order and waves of investment each new hospital will be constructed in. Hospitals included in a wave will begin construction, while forthcoming schemes will be undertaking pre-construction work to prepare planning permission and secure business cases. With this approach, we can ensure schemes are ready to be built as soon as possible. A list of the schemes in each wave has been published on gov.uk and the plan for implementation in the plan for implementation. And for reference, I will briefly outline the timeline delivery. Actually, I think we've seen all the waves. I think the Honourable Gentleman wants to move on to Bexhill and East Sussex, because Wave 3 covers... Yes, go on.
Gagan Mahindra.
I thank the Minister for giving way on that particular point. In terms of Watford General, we have a window between 2032 and 2034. Given the certainty she's trying to give to the programme, but also the rest of the country, what assurances and what assumptions has she made for that 2-year window, and how can she reassure me and my residents that there won't be any further delays?
Minister.
I will pick up that point. Wave 3, which is the debate that the Honourable Gentleman secured about, including schemes which were always part of a post-2030 plan, and now we do have the confirmed dates. The East Sussex New Hospital Scheme for East Sussex Healthcare Trust includes, as the Honourable Gentleman said, new buildings and refurbishments at Eastbourne District General Hospital, Conquest Hospital and Bexhill Community Hospital. The scheme is in Wave 3 of the delivery plan and will commence construction between 2037 and 39. We understand this is disappointing news to some people who are expecting and were told that their hospital would be earlier, but we can assure them now that there is now a credible and funded plan for their delivery, no more false promises. It is now our priority to get on and deliver these new hospitals for the benefit of staff and patients who so vitally need them. We understand the importance of these schemes to local communities and the need to invest in health infrastructure. And we will continue to engage with trusts, including, as the Honourable just made with Watford, over the next few years to establish whether there are any other activities that can be progressed during the spending review. We will be in discussions with all of those trusts to understand mitigations in the meantime. That's a source of many questions that came up in the many meetings I held with honourable members yesterday. I understand that people need to know all of these hospitals are critical. They wouldn't be on the list if there wasn't a major problem with them. So we do need to talk to those trusts about how we manage that process in the meantime. I'd also like to acknowledge that this will be a difficult time for the core teams and all the people that have been working on these schemes, and many of which will be stood down. The expertise of these people and their knowledge is extraordinarily valuable, and I know the programme teams will be making efforts to ensure that this expertise is retained where possible and used in order to develop the wider programme. The Trust are currently developing their strategic outline case. As per the business case process set out in Her Majesty's Treasury Green Book, following the review and approval of their SOC, the next step will be the development, review and agreement of the outline and full business case. Now, I understand that many areas like Bexhill will have plans for housing to accommodate a growing population, and my department will work closely with ICBs and the MHCLG to ensure that those communities have the health provision they need. Beyond establishing a credible programme, we are also taking steps to restore people's trust through honesty and transparency, and we will be setting out further information for each scheme shortly to ensure a more open way of working and collaborative programme delivery. I held meetings yesterday, Chair, with members of Parliament from all the waves involved in this progress to give them the opportunity to ask more detailed questions about their individual schemes and give them clarity their constituents deserved. Letters have also been issued to the trusts. We did that. It was a very successful way of working. I certainly felt I learned a lot about lots of the individual schemes. Members of Parliament from all parties came to pick up their schemes. I gave my commitment then that I will continue to talk to colleagues about these schemes. I offer that absolutely to the honourable gentleman and for members of Parliament to work with their trusts to understand the detail on the ground. I will take that intervention before.
I really warmly welcome and congratulate her on the news that the Women and Children's Hospital at Trelisk and the Emergency Care Hospital at Derriford are in Wave 1. However, some of my North Cornwall constituents rely on the crumbling North Devon Hospital, which is now potentially 15 years from a rebuild. Please, will the Minister meet with me to discuss how we can expand care at Bodmin, Launceston and Bude community hospitals, which are all at least 1 hour from their closest district hospitals when we're talking about mitigations?
Thank the honourable gentleman for that intervention, and we did have a good discussion yesterday about North Devon. I do understand the rurality of that location. It's fairly close to myself in Bristol. My commitment is, however we manage it, obviously there are a lot of schemes, a lot of MPs. I'm open to suggestions about how we continue forward. I hope that people feel we have tried to give as much information to you and the Trust directly from the announcement and to have those meetings yesterday, and that's the spirit in which we will seek to continue. I'll take the
on that, I would like to welcome the spirit of openness and transparency that the new leadership has demonstrated of the programme. Frustratingly, from residents in Hillingdon, we were, to be frank, led down the garden path previously, left with all but an IOU note for £750 million for a new hospital. The revenue funding for the new hospital team ran out this year, and we were pleased to see it renewed, and obviously to be in Wave 1 and a significant capital investment committed to for the new hospital of over £1 billion. So going forward, will that spirit of openness and transparency continue? This is complicated. It is hard to deliver these projects and scales. And even with the best will in the world, if another 20 billion were to appear, despite the party opposite opposing any method to actually raise any money, if that money were to appear, in reality, the construction sector would struggle to build all of these hospitals at once. So isn't it the case that it is quite challenging to deliver this project at scale, and will that spirit of openness and transparency continue?
I thank him for that, and his continued campaigning on behalf of the residents of Hillingdon, of whom I used to be one. Absolutely. I think it is really important, and we have learnt a lot from understanding and talking to people about that. And if I haven't outlined that enough, to be very clear, all of your constituents, Madam Chair, all of our constituents that are on this programme are in severe need. The programme has looked at that clinical need, the deliverability of the programme, and we understand how difficult these choices are. So I do thank him for that intervention. In terms of very quickly, yes, thank you.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way, and can I welcome this confirmation from the Labour government of funding which will help the Conquest Hospital in Hastings, part of the East Sussex Trust, as well as other hospitals that my constituents use, alongside a big package of support announced in the budget by the Chancellor, record investment in our NHS, more appointments to help clear the backlog left by the Conservatives.
I thank her for that, and it does highlight another point which I think the honourable gentleman did raise about other capital plans and programmes that are going in place in order to help his local constituents and others over the coming years. So in conclusion, Madam Chair, I do thank the honourable member for raising this issue at this, but I think not. I think his timing is superb. If he wanted to make an extra point, I will courtesy give him a chance to come back in.
Just in the previous hour, I've had a communication from the Trust explaining that they do recognise it's in the hundreds of millions, the extra that they think it's going to cost them now with the delay. So I'd be very grateful to take up that offer of some time with them and other MPs that use those services to see how we can help them access that funding.
Thank you for that. And I think we learnt a lot. Yesterday we had the team, an expert team from the new hospital programme. I mean, I really, if I got a moment, to thank them for their incredible work to get to this point. And I think colleagues who could make those meetings yesterday found that their knowledge about every single one of these programmes is quite phenomenal. There's not a question that I've yet asked them that they didn't know about on each of these schemes, if I can give colleagues that confidence. So both colleagues from NHS England and colleagues working in the department. And the lesson I've learned, as also when I went to an assurance meeting a few weeks ago, is that this relationship between the central control of the programme, the trusts, and how we get these delivered for everyone's constituents, and the value of parliamentarians talking to me, and everyone stopped me in the corridors to raise some of these issues as to what they are. I think it's very valuable. I think it is a good function of parliamentarians, and absolutely that's the spirit in which we want to continue, because our commitment is to deliver these hospitals, including Eastbourne District General, Conquest Hospital and Bexhill Community Hospital Scheme. And I'm really pleased to say we have got an affordable deliverable plan to do this. We know it's going to be difficult, but I look forward to working with him and other colleagues in the both. Go on. Yeah.
Very gracious of you, Minister, for allowing me to intervene again. Just in terms of full transparency, if the Minister's timetable for development of these new hospitals does get delayed, could she ensure that all MPs, not just constituency MPs, are informed that things like new Watford General, which is meant to be between 2032 and 2034, if there is any further delays, that's communicated as quick as possible, because certainty to our constituents will be critical this time.
We absolutely will. One of the advantages of the waves is we recognise, and everybody knows this, that there are sometimes unavoidable delays to schemes, be it that to do with the site, but the advantage of the pre-construction work and the knowledge we have about sites is most of that should be built into the programme and the timing. But life happens. One of the central issues for the programme is the capability and capacity in the construction arena, as well as across the country, in terms of developing primary estate in order to get these things done. So part of the issue with the waves, which gives us some advantage, is the flexibility around that things will inevitably move. That is life, and we very much want to keep relationships up with local trusts to inform. That's going to be difficult, as the Honourable Member for Uxbridge and South Ruislip said, but that is the spirit in which we want to continue. So I do give him and other colleagues that absolute commitment, and I thank you very much, Chair.
The question is that this House has considered the new hospital programme. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. I think the ayes have it. Order. Order.